Finally, it's game week. Finally, NFL football is back. Finally, we are going to get to see our Seattle Seahawks play in a game that actually means something. No more of this preseason mumbo jumbo. We're getting right into the action, and we're jumping into a deep one here on Seahawks Today. I'm your host, Will Ortner. You've got the Seahawks taking on the hated rivals, San Francisco 49ers, in Lumen Field. Yes, I will have family boots on the ground, and they're going to help our Seattle Seahawks start the season 1-0. You can't go perfect if you don't go 1-0. Now remember, you don't want to be dumb. You love the Seahawks. I love the Seahawks. You're going to go in and make sure you slam that like button on this video. Don't jinx it. Don't give our Seahawks a chance to potentially fall to San Francisco. Now, before we jump into any of the reasons why the Seahawks are going to win this one, we got to go to the doctors. Got to take a doctor's visit. Look, it's been a while since I've gone to my own doctor, but on Twitter it does say MD in my handle. That doesn't stand for medical doctor, but people have confused me for a medical doctor before. So let's look at some of the Seahawks injuries. Right now, you've got Christian Haynes out. He's got a pec injury. He will not be playing in this game. He is going to be out for the first couple of weeks, so do not expect him to even have a chance to play in this game. Now, when you go through the rest of the guys, they probably are going to be able to give it a go. I know that Tory Horton didn't practice last week when you were getting ready for the Green Bay game. He's still been unsuited at practice, at least at the point of recording of this video. I believe that he's going to do his best to give it a go. I believe that you will see Tory Horton suited up trying to play. Does that mean he will play? Not necessarily. Tyrese Knight, you haven't seen him. He's been working his way back from his knee surgery in the offseason. It does sound like, from what Mike Macdonald's been saying to the media, he's going to be good to go. Now, the two guys with concussions, that's one of those funky, weird ones where it just depends on how the concussion is affecting them. Obviously, Jake Bobo took a gigantic hit against the Green Bay Packers in that third preseason game. He was down for a while. Concussions are hard to gauge. Some guys recover faster from them. Some guys take a little bit longer. It just completely depends on how long it takes them to get back. Now, aside from Christian Haynes, like I've already said, he's out. He ain't coming in. He was a backup anyways. The rest of that injured crew, the other five, they are listed as questionable right now. In my eyes, when I see questionable or probable, that's going to give them a decent to above 50% chance of playing. I would expect you see most, if not all, of those guys playing against San Francisco next Sunday. Now, when it comes to the 49ers crew, I can't even really get into their full injury report because their wide receiver room is decimated. I understand that Juwan Jennings is probably going to be back for this game. At least that's what they're saying. He hasn't played a lot in the preseason. He hasn't practiced a lot during training camp. How is he going to come back? Is he going to come back completely ready to go, 100%, not missing a beat? Or is he going to be one of those guys that struggles for a week or two because he needs to ramp his body up? Jordan Watkins, he's dealing with an ankle injury. I know I just said that I believe Tory Horton's going to be okay and he's going to be ready to go. Whenever you have a wide receiver with an ankle injury, sometimes that can kind of slow you down. Sometimes that can limit what types of routes you're able to run with. And then the last two guys I don't expect to see at all, right? Cowing, he's got the hamstring injury. When the minute you have a hamstring injury, that thing just stays with you for the entire year. The only way to heal that is rest. I've dealt with it before, and believe me, if it hurts me still to this day, I think that it's going to be a struggle for Cowing to come back and be ready to go. Obviously, Ayuk, he's not going to go at all. He's still recovering from his knee surgery and his knee injury. I would not expect to see him really until about halfway through the year. So when you look at a position group that is as injury riddled as that wide receiver room is, I really like our chances in this one. One, because you're going to get a lot of wide receivers that weren't there in the system already. Look, we already know that MVS signed with San Francisco. Now he is on the practice squad. Don't be shocked if he gets elevated for this game. There's talk about Kendrick Bourne coming back into the picture. Obviously, Ricky Purcell's healthy. He's fine. He's good to go. That is a tough receiver that you're going to have to lock down on. That's also a guy who's in his second year in the NFL. That's also a guy who didn't get to play a large portion of his rookie year. So are you able to use your veteran cornerbacks to take advantage of his youth, of his naivety? You need to capitalize on the injuries that the wide receiver room is dealing with in San Francisco. They are going to have a lot of trouble getting guys up to speed. MVS is a veteran. He's been around the block. He's played for multiple teams. Kendrick Bourne is a veteran. He's been around the block. He's played for multiple teams. I don't believe that they're going to come in and just pick up right where they left off and start running. The rest of that wide receiver unit, it's a lot of untested guys. Even like I already mentioned, Ricky Purcell. He is a second-year player who had a few starts last year. He missed a lot of time. Is he going to be able to hit the ground running and just start going from the jump? I look at this as a position group that this defense can exploit, and I'll get into more of that in a little bit. But before I do that, I want you to gauge your interest or give me your opinion on the injuries that both teams are suffering from. Which team's injury report is going to affect the game more? If you think it's the Seahawks, they're going to have worse injuries and that's going to affect their game plan, type C. No, not C. C. If you think it's the 49ers and the injuries that they have suffered, not just in the wide receiver room, but in the entire unit, that entire offense, that entire defense, you're going to type SF for the San Francisco 49ers. Personally, I think it's the 49ers. I might be a little bit biased. Now, the Hawks are going to win this game because I've got 3 reasons. I gave you 2, but that's because 2 more are still to come. The first reason, this offensive line is vastly, and I mean vastly, improved. I'm not just jumping on the bandwagon because of how well they performed in the preseason. I'm jumping on this bandwagon because of how well this unit is going to look compared to what last year's unit looked like. Last year's offensive line unit struggled. The scheme did not set them up for success. You had players that were named as starters that were a starter 1 week, and then the next week they were out. Abraham Lucas is supposed to be your starting right tackle. He wasn't able to go for most of the year, working his way back from injuries. It felt like it was a revolving door at right tackle. You could never build that chemistry. It feels like you've had that opportunity to build that chemistry with this unit. Even Charles Cross, who missed most of training camp with his finger injury, he's a veteran in the NFL. He's been around the block before, and Gray Zabel has proven that he can play with any unit. Now, Jalen, Sundell, and Anthony Bradford have been named your starters at center for Sundell and Bradford at right guard. Again, early on, and I've said this multiple times, as we were going through training camp, I was worried when you were telling me that Anthony Bradford was going to be a starter. I did not feel comfortable with that. He has proven, I believe, in the preseason to show that he is ready to go and he's going to be fine by the season. I wouldn't be too worried about him. I like the way this scheme is set up to run the football at a highly efficient level, and it's going to allow defenses to not be able to pin their ear backs and rush the passer. The issue with Ryan Grubb's offense was it was pass happy. You threw the ball constantly, right? You went through and you were throwing the ball 50 times a game. It was so egregious to the point that Mike Macdonald had to come into the room and say, we need to run the football. He wore a run the damn ball hat when he walked into a press conference. That just can't happen, and that will not happen with Klint Kubiak. Now, I understand that I might be a little bit biased, but I think that this offensive line unit isn't just improved by the scheme alone. I think that you've got some absolute dogs there, and I love what Gray Zabel has been able to do for much of this preseason. Now, I've already given you why I believe the improved offensive line is going to help the Seattle Seahawks win this game. The second reason I think the Seahawks win this game is the turnover battle. Now, you might look at yourself and say, well, Will, this offensive line unit, like they had some issues when it came to turning the ball over last year. Offensively, there were interceptions, there were fumbles. I'm not going to say that they were, happening galore, but there were multiple times where you could not finish with the football. It becomes coach speak to a point where you say the team that holds onto the football more than the other, the team that does not make mistakes, that does not fumble the ball, that does not throw interceptions, is going to win the game. Well, in the NFL, the numbers back it up. Over 75% of the time, the team that wins the turnover battle wins the freaking game. Last year, Seattle was not great at that. You had a -6 turnover differential. For those of you who don't know, -6 means they had 6 more turnovers than they forced. I blame a lot of that on Ryan Grubb's offense. You were asking Geno Smith to sit back and throw. You fell behind a lot in multiple games where you had to throw to catch up. And at times, Geno Smith made some mistakes. I don't think that's going to happen in Klint Kubiak's system because he wants to run the football. And when you do throw, it's going to be set up off the play action pass. That should allow for more open targets. The bright side, San Francisco 49ers, well, they were worse than you last year. They had a minus 10 turnover differential. So in my eyes, you're going up against a team that already turns the ball over more. And guess what they're not going to do in San Francisco? They're not changing up their offensive scheme. You made the change in your offensive scheme to be more quarterback friendly, to be more turnover friendly. I think that with the new change up in the scheme, with the defense having a full year in the Mike Macdonald system, they're going to be playing at a higher rate. They're going to be willing to take more risks. They're going to be willing to go and get more turnovers. You are going to minimize your turnovers. You're going to give yourself more opportunities to create turnovers. I think that the Seahawks do that against the 49ers. I think if you win the turnover battle, you're 3/4 of the way there to winning this ball game. Now, I've given you the first two. Now, the third one, and the most important one in my eyes, is you need to limit penalties. This team last year for the Seahawks had multiple games where turnovers and penalties killed drives. You would be driving late in a game, Anthony Bradford would jump offside. You would be driving late in a game, holding penalty, Charles Cross. And I'm just throwing out guys who can take kind of that ribbing. You had last year 119 total penalties. That means you were averaging 58 penalties per game. How many times last year did we see third down stops and then a flag got thrown in for defensive pass interference? That cannot happen. That needs to stop. I think it will stop because the Seahawks and Mike Macdonald have a greater focus to it. And the one beauty of playing at home in Seattle, in Lumen Field, you have the best, and I mean the best, home field advantage when it comes to the NFL. It needs to be loud in Lumen 12s. It needs to be rocking. It needs to be shaking. You didn't see what I did there? I forgot that the desk isn't on camera. The desk shook, just so you know. It needs to be shaking. It needs to be loud. We need to register some movement on the Richter scale. Don't let San Francisco come into your house and beat you. Allow yourself to become a part of the game, 12s. And the best way to do that is to get loud and force false starts for San Francisco. I think that these three keys of the game are going to be the most important for the Seahawks. I think those three keys to the game, improved offensive line, frankly, offensive scheme in general. If you win the turnover battle, you're 3/4 of the way there to winning the game anyways. And you limit penalties. You take down some of your penalties. The 12s get rocking and Lumen. They create some penalties for the 49ers. You win this game. I'm going bold. I'm making a prediction. I think the Seahawks win this game 24-17. I'm sorry I don't have a Schwami pick for you, but in my eyes, I think this is a close game. It's going to be a rock'em sock'em type of game. Don't be surprised if it's a little bit sloppy in the first half especially, but I think your Seattle Seahawks come out on top. You want to debate me? Head on over to X. Head on over to Instagram, @Will Ortner. You give me a follow. That's going to allow you to DM me, reach out to me, tweet at me. We'll have a conversation about our Seattle Seahawks and the lead up to this game against the San Francisco 49ers. Until next time, I'll see you later.